Good to see everyone.
All right. Thank you for being here tonight. I've been really looking forward to this. I was thinking that we've been building a lot of foundations in Roanoke. And I went to a couple of things this weekend and a thing yesterday that made me feel like, it's not going to take long for those foundations just to connect and build far, far more than the sum of their parts. What I like to do with these Arts Connect Tuesdays, and I'm going to keep admitting people. With these Arts Connect Tuesdays, we really like to make sure we know who's in the room. So everybody, because the big fun part of about this is Arts Connect and Arts Connect people. So I'm Douglas Jackson. I'm the Arts and Culture Coordinator for the City of Roanoke. We'll run around the room and then I'll call out people on the screen. And start with you.
Kate Heinrich, I resident of the City of Roanoke, kind of downtown, and saw it on a community calendar somewhere. I was like, oh, this will be fun to attend.
And you're an architect?
I work in an architecture firm.
I remember that. Okay, yeah.
My name is Madeline Lenahan. I also live downtown. I work at the Tuttle Museum of Art as an art handler. I'm also a fashion designer.
And you're getting ready for a big show opening.
Right now, yes.
Thank you for taking the time to be here.
Of course.
I'm Rachel Ann Morris. I live in Old Southwest. Local artist, do lots of odd job gig stuff. Right now I'm doing some fine arts modeling, which is really fun. So
Excellent.
yeah, if you know of any classes that need a model, I'm looking. So
I'm Becky Carr. I'm a member of the Roanoke Arts Commission.
And a potter.
And a potter.
Yeah.
I'm Tom Carr. I'm Mr. Becky
And
And
retired.
and a big advocate for having a bikeable city. Yeah.
And walkable too. I'm Ben Basak. I'm a retired school teacher with the city. I'm on the Arts Commission as well.
All right, and we're gonna run through and we'll start with Molly.
Hi, I'm Molly Kernan. I'm the artist in residence for Southeast, and I live in Southeast, and I love
All right. Let's see, Joy.
Hi, I'm Joy. I'm an artist in residence too. I'm a facilitator for the Arts Connect Neighbors program. I'm also a big advocate for a bikeable city as I ride my bike. That's my main mode of transportation. So yay. And happy to be here.
Excellent. Cody.
I'm Cody Stapler. I'm a graphic designer and local artist. And I live in South Roanoke, but at this point I feel kind of like an honorary member of a few different neighborhoods in town. And just excited to be here and to hear what we're talking about tonight.
All right. Sunny.
I am Sunny Purviance, and I work with iHeart Southeast, and I live in Southeast, and I love it.
Okay, Jessica, you get to top that.
You better say you love it, Jessica.
Yes, I'm also with iHeart Southeast. Also a resident of Southeast Roanoke. I do love it, but also I am a member of the Roanoke Neighborhood Advocates and excited to hear more about these neighborhood center art plans.
Great. Katrina.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, it's been a while since I've joined a Zoom call. Obviously, I can't turn my camera on. I'm Katrina Leggins. I am a muralist in Roanoke and artist. Currently in the Southwest Virginia, Roanoke, Virginia area from Northwest region. I'm glad to be here and share some talks with you all.
All right, thanks for being here. Natalia.
Hey, guys. Sorry, I can't be on camera right now. I'm here with dinner with my little ones. You might hear them. I'm Natalia Michael. I'm an artist in residence for the current year. I've been working with the Tinker Creek project, which has been a pretty expansive series of events, including Pilgrims at the Creek, which if you all haven't checked it out at the fourth floor of the municipal building, please do. It's really beautiful. Yeah, so that's all I have.
All right.
Excited for the conversation.
Thanks, Natalia. And Jane.
Hey, hey everybody. I'm Jane Gabrielle. I'm an artist in residence for the neighborhood of Gainsboro. I live in Northwest and I love it.
Did I miss anybody? All right. Now, I had said a little bit earlier that we're building a lot of foundations. One of the foundations that we've been building has been this focus on neighborhoods. So we've had artists in residence working in neighborhoods. We've got the Arts Connect Neighbors catalog. We got the Daisy Art Parade that is celebrating neighbors getting together, making art and celebrating our creative practice. And all of these different layers from the arts perspective, we see as completely lining up. And then right on cue, Mandy walks in. And Mandy has been leading the charge with the Main Street Mosaic effort. And Mandy, do you want to just give a little the 5-sentence synopsis of what that is?
Sure. So we are spearheading a citywide initiative to implement the Main Street model into 5 neighborhood centers. And we're starting with 11th Street, and things are going so beautifully. We're building trust with the community. We're being kind of pushed through this timeline that feels kind of fast, especially for building trust, but things are happening, and I think I don't know, we're gonna start noticing more things in the 11th Street district.
Yeah.
Pretty soon. I don't know. I don't know how many sentences that was, but
that was perfect. You weren't keeping count. That was perfect. And that Main Street model is a way to build a public-private partnership to invest in a place and care for the place around us. And it has several elements. The one, it's about community organizing and how you get together to affect change. It's about design, so what the community looks like, the promotions, what kind of activities happen there, how you talk about yourself, the events that celebrate who we are, and then the economy, kind of having a vibrant neighborhood cluster really depends on businesses. So how do we support businesses and help entrepreneurs pursue their dreams? And all of that is really around kind of neighborhood identity. And we've got these neighborhoods that we think that we can, with a little bit of love and care and helping the neighbors get together and figure out how we can support them and reinvest in those neighborhoods, we can really get somewhere. So I said that back to those building blocks, the artists in residence are one of the building blocks. And Carri Gault, our guest tonight, was one of the artists in residence. And Carri she's kind of perfect for what we're talking about here. First off, we talked about Main Street Mosaic, which is the name of that Mandy gave to the initiative. Why'd you say Mosaic?
I said Mosaic because I was putting together the application to be a part of mobilizing Main Street, and was on a bit of a tight timeline, and so had to come up with something on a whim. And honestly, it's like, the different pieces, the different fabrics of the community, the different culture and, identities of the neighborhoods. But honestly, it was just a nod to one of my favorite hops.
Well, excellent. So Main Street Mosaic, I think it's a lovely name. Meanwhile, Carri Gault was one of our artists in residence, and the way the artist in residence program was imagined, it was to say, hey, can we use some of our percent for art funds to grab an artist to work alongside us and to think with us and plan with us, even if we don't know what the project is. So Carri was one of those artists in residence, and she happens to be a mosaicist, which is super cool. But she's also a trained architect and a public artist. And we said, let's get Carri working alongside us. And like, we know we're going to learn something. We don't know what we're going to learn yet, but we're going to learn. And that's kind of the spirit we try to step into everything with. So we got in the car one day with Ben and Carri, and we drove around the neighborhoods. Carri dug into a report, and we're going to hear it. She's going to give us kind of the overview of that, of a report that City Council approved, the Emerging Neighborhoods Vision Report, that said, hey, we really believe these districts are worth investing in. And we've got the bones of historic commercial districts, and let's try and do something with them. So with that as the introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Carri, if that's okay. Or Carri, should I have said something else?
No, that's great. Mandy, I just want to say, as a beer drinker, I really appreciate the double entendre of the mosaic hops. So
Thank you, Gary. I'm slightly disappointed that I said that out
loud. Oh, no,
it was great. I love it.
Thank you.
That's just my look.
Absolutely not.
I have a keg of Parkway beer on tap in my house as we speak. So there you go.
Can you send me your address?
Why aren't we having the meeting? Why aren't we having the meeting there?
Yeah. That's amazing, though. Goals.
Well, thanks for the introduction. The other thing that I thought about while you were talking about the neighborhood connections, I used to have a small architecture practice in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I had bought a piece of commercial property in an urban neighborhood in 2008, and the economy tanked in 2009. And so I had this building, and I had no architecture practice anymore. I had to let my entire staff go, and I didn't know what to do. And my mother was a production potter my whole childhood, so I had been around clay, and I decided that I would just mosaic the front of my building. So I got a lot of tile left over from a lot of my vendors. As an architect, I had resources for all of that. My mother helped me glaze some things and make some new tile, and we ended up mosaic the front of the building, which sat in the middle of a 5-way intersection. And so it became this beacon for the neighborhood. So it really became a rebirth for me out of the sort of ashes of a horrible financial time to really kind of be resurrected. And it helped kind of really ground that neighborhood too. So I have a personal affection to what I think you all are trying to do here in Roanoke too. So I also have some background as an architect and artist with doing some strategic planning. I've worked with folks on bicycle pathways, doing art and things like that. So I really do like the sort of big picture, and then I like the minutia. I kind of do the opposite ends of the spectrum. So I'm going to share my screen, and I just wanted to. Douglas mentioned the emergency neighborhood report. If you haven't looked at this is what my report is based off of. And so every time that you see some of the mapping and things like that, that's really taken from recommendations from this report. I'm not going to go through it, but it's there for you to do. And then the other one is the Gainsborough neighborhood plan, which was done a little earlier in time. So those are the two pieces that are kind of the backbone to what this kind of guide that I created is for. So let me go my full screen. There we go. So I do have some experience. My partner and I own some property in Old Southwest, so I've been in and out of Roanoke for 15 years. I love it. And one of the reasons I moved to Floyd, I don't know if we mentioned that, I live in Floyd, was because Roanoke was there and because I really like the vibrancy and the kind of urbanness of it. And so it was nice driving around and really getting to know the neighborhoods here a little bit better. And, I really think that public art can be a great catalyst, both economically and culturally for neighborhoods. A lot of my work sits in places that, are very urban environments, and people tend to respect their environments more when they've got something beautiful there that they can sort of identify with. Um, so this is sort of the table of contents and how we're going to go over this. And this is, I'm just pulling directly from the report. I'll just kind of go through. Basically, I see this as a document to sort of help stimulate, not dictate. So this is not saying this is what you should do, this is what we need to do. This is sort of to give examples and ideas and maybe some organizational framework that can help stimulate ideas within these neighborhoods, because I think that the folks that live there, work there, will have a better sort of understanding of content and purpose for things. So it's organized in 4 different sort of categories. I find that it's easier to sort of look at things in terms of categories. And so we have 4, and some of them are overlapping. So, that it's not real rigid, but it does help to kind of give a way to start to think about space and ideas. So the first would be the gateway thing, which is art elements that are very notable. They're very prominent. They tend to be, to have a transition to them. Their primary entrances to neighborhoods, arteries, that type of thing, tend to be more permanent in structure. And then traffic calming, which is seems to be a pretty popular one these days. A lot of asphalt art and mural art, bike bike racks, bollards, bus stops, those types of things that tend to have people slow down when they're going through places, but also can create some sort of episodic. It's a great way to sort of give a neighborhood identity because it's something that's sort of happening frequently throughout the neighborhood. I'm not going here. Okay. And then there's also temporary things, which can kind of go in multiple categories. But I think particularly looking at some of these neighborhoods, there are great places for where there may be some long-term ideas in terms of development, but in the short term, art can kind of come in and begin to create that sense of place and sense of space. Things like fence panels, flags and pendants, which some of your neighborhoods already have a lot of that. Movable pieces that can create sort of temporary places, and where these can be, vacant lots and light posts and places that are kind of underutilized at the moment. And then finally, really creating place-making places. And I think this is what a lot of public artists really strive for is creating a sense of place, and where are there places where art can begin to connect and engage people in ways that create a dynamic and unique feeling. This happens to be one of my projects right here. So again, these are more permanent in nature. They can be anything from murals, which you all have an amazing amount of beautiful mural art in Roanoke already. But again, creating places to sit, parks, areas that are again adjacent to places that people already commune, like restaurants, and they become sort of neighborhood landmarks. So with those four things in mind, as sort of as organizational tools, these are the five neighborhoods that we've been talking about. And so this would be 11th Street. And there's already a nice mural stock in this area. Obviously, you all know that. But again, there's a lot of kind of industrial usage. And so it's a great place for the opportunity for some temporary art that maybe begin to start creating rhythm and identity for the area as it sort of develops into something else. So this is the map that's taken from the original review of these neighborhoods, and so you can kind of see what they're imagining in terms of future development, and then potentially what art can kind of go in there now or later to begin to sort of develop the aesthetic intention there. So um, there's a lot of places where there's fencing and all where, temporary art can go, and a lot of opportunity for that. I know this is this is areas really getting developed nicely. And so are there ways to begin to do asphalt art in some of the major intersections there? And then finally, the potential for a public-private venture with this corner right here. So here's kind of an example of what we might be looking at in terms of the other thing about the kind of intersection art is it's a great community builder, which I know you all have done some of that already. And then maybe the potential for something happening on that corner that becomes a real gathering space for the neighborhood, that it begins to be its own sort of piece of art. And then in the West End, the things that are already there, like the banners, there's a lot of energy that's been spent there, which I think is really great. And that, these can, again, a neighborhood where there's a lot of potential development, perhaps, how do you come in with some permanent and temporary things that can begin to enliven the area? So you can see here, again, this is sort of the proposed potential future development along the area. Again, having some major intersection spots where we might be able to engage and start creating a sense of rhythm through the space. And then there's places that, maybe where there's some blank areas that placemaking can begin to start places where people can gather. And then the report also mentioned something about potentially a gateway marker in this neighborhood as you come in to really identify that. And then again, through some of these pieces of property that are underutilized right now, maybe there are ways to do some temporary episodic. I'm a big fan of episodic art. I really like things that start to create a rhythm in a space. So, for example, this piece that's kind of underutilized right now is this become a place where there could be, a temporary display or some sort of, thematic thing that recurs and changes over time to sort of begin to brighten up that corridor. And then again, looking at some of the places where there could be intersection art that really speaks to the sort of specificity of the neighborhood and the rhythm of that neighborhood. And then Melrose, which probably has some of the most, has a lot of really good art infrastructure. Again, looking at ways to engage some of the larger areas that are underutilized. This is sort of an example in the shopping center parking lot. If there was a temporary pop-up area for people to come and hang out, that these things could move in different places in the city, or to really begin to engage those kind of underutilized urban areas. And so this is taken from the report, basically looking at this as sort of future and really kind of focusing more on this corridor. Again, with several gateway opportunities to engage with when you come into and are in the neighborhood. Sorry, my voice is a little tired tonight. So, for example, coming in, maybe there's some place. I'm a big proponent of using landscaping too. So, if there's a way to sort of, when you come into a place, you really start to begin to get an idea of the identity of the neighborhood. I love the shops up here where they're using landscape in front of the shops to really kind of create another layer of richness in that environment. And then, opportunities where there might be some really big, really wonderful identifying places, like this sort of screen wall for the power plant area, which is at that kind of major intersection, which would be kind of a nice identifier. And then 9th Street, which already a lot of this has been done. I know that I'm assuming the medians that are going in there are being done with that CDBG grant. So the potential for kind of using that is a really great opportunity. In the report, there was some conversation about maybe there being a roundabout at the end here. I think that's Highland, is that right? And so incorporating some of the infrastructure that's already happening through this area to incorporate art in the medians. And then there's also, because there's so many kind of wonderful broad sides of buildings in this neighborhood, that more mosaic and mural art, I think, could really work well in this area to sort of kind of create some more vibrancy. And again, with the intersections and places along the edge where perhaps people can really begin to create another layer, that art can sort of create this sort of richness of layers next to some of these public spaces, community stores and shop fronts. And then finally, Gainsborough, which didn't have quite as much information in the planning, but there were some really important conversations in terms of the history of the area, and traffic calming was a big deal, and gateway possibilities because of its proximity to downtown. And so these are some of the areas where gateway opportunities were talked about. This is off of Orange. And so coming into the neighborhood, maybe, highlighting the history of the area, the sort of reappreciation of the kind of corridor of Gainsborough, the real kind of business district of Henry Street, and the potential of sort of really revitalizing this area and using art to sort of help with that. So here, kind of creating that little pocket park on the edge, and perhaps having art really that can create a sense of place right there in the middle of that area. And then again, with traffic calming, and there's this kind of really wonderful connector to the neighborhood, which is a really kind of prominent cross between vehicular and pedestrian traffic, that I think if you can elevate that to something important, would probably help with some of the traffic calming as well. So those are just some of the initial thoughts. And like I said, this really is intended as something to stimulate ideas and not really kind of dictate in terms of content or place, but to really start to give some ideas of where things could go, and and how they could really begin to identify those neighborhoods, and not only identify the neighborhoods, but connect the neighborhoods to each other. Um, I do love that Mosaic is greater than the some of its parts, and that you get a different vision from far away than you do when you get close up. And I think using the art in that kind of macro micro scale, from a city scale to a neighborhood scale to a piece scale, can really begin to create a language and an identity for these neighborhoods and how they connect. And that's all I have. So
Carrie, I'm sure we'll have a little conversation. But before we do, would you mind showing us some of your work? Maybe the public art section of your website.
Sure.
If you're comfortable, we'd love to learn a little bit more about your practice.
Sure, I can do that. Can't see. Okay. So I am a recovering architect. I know there's one of those in the room. I had a small practice in Charlotte, which I mentioned before. A lot of what I did as an architect was urban and renovation work. This is urban infill in downtown Charlotte. It's near my own old office. So that was really the focus of my practice there. Thought I had a picture of my actual building on that site. So this is when I was talking to you about my old studio and mosaicing the front of the building. That's my old studio, and it's in the middle of a five-way intersection. It's now a tattoo parlor, and I had to put siding over the top of that. So that's another story. It's still there. It's still there. It's still there.
Sell the rights? Is that kind of what it?
Sorry?
Is it to because they don't have the rights to your art, or?
No, they didn't want it because they're tattoo artists. That's okay.
Wow.
So most of what I do is either handmade, hand printed tile, which is what you're seeing here, is a piece I did for the LGBTQ community in Rochester, New York. And it's a series of panels that contain a lot of imagery from their community. It's one of the oldest and very rich LGBT communities in the country. And so you can see here both types of work that I do. This would be mosaic work, and then these are handmade panels. And so I have several different printing methods that I use to print on tile, and all of that's hand colored and it's all glazed. So it's very, very sturdy stuff. It was great at the introduction of this young woman right here sang "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." It was really sweet. And her picture was right there with her. She liked that.
Was that interior or exterior?
It's outside, but it's underneath a breezeway.
Okay.
Most of my work is exterior. Most of my public work is outside. This is a piece I did. There's 4 thresholds. This is at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, like a lot of Southern universities, sort of is going through a reckoning of being a Southern school on a plantation, and how to sort of pay homage to people other than the plantation owners and their history. And so these, you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4. For those of you that know Virginia Tech, this is the duck pond. And then Solitude is the house that's there. And so these 4 pieces pay homage to the indigenous and enslaved people that also call the property home. So that's the original plantation house. This is a piece I did in Rock Hill, South Carolina. They actually have a communications museum there. I know that's really weird, but whatever, good for them. So this is a piece that's about communication, past and future. And so there's this ball, this big globe that lights up at night that the teacher's holding, and then all the kids are from different eras, and all of the tile on these pieces are other images of communication in Rock Hill from different generations. And then this is also in Rock Hill, completely separate group and time, but this is a project that I was one of a team that I did all the mosaic work for this. So there's 5 big mosaics on the walk. Sharon Dowell did the mosaic, the mural work, and then Groundwork Studio and Juan Logan did the kind of design of the walkway that pays homage to their sit-ins, their Woolworth sit-ins in the 60s. So that's some of my larger mosaic stuff. And then this is at a park in Greensboro, LeBauer Park in downtown Greensboro. It's a sensory wall for children with sensory processing disorders that often accompanies autism. And so one side is you either have sensory overload or you need a lot of sensory input. And so this is kind of the hot side, the more active side, and then this is the cooler side of the wall. And we worked with kids and their caregivers to make all the tile. They made a bunch of marks in giant slabs of clay, and then I made the tile from those marks. So when they go all the way around the wall. And that's a small piece that I did here for Chantilly Farm, which is not Chantilly Farm anymore. And then that's an old piece that I did with middle school students, where they did all of the figural pieces. It's the 3 different pillars, and it's the 3 regions of North Carolina. So the Piedmont, the coast, and the mountains. So I like doing a lot of work with groups, with community work for sure. And then that's more of the kind of mosaic work that I do. So I just finished a big private mosaic that I don't have on here, but if you go on my Instagram page, you can see it. So that's a little bit about what I do.
Great. It wouldn't have been complete without that. I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, I also work, the 2 projects I'm doing right now have nothing to do with tile. So they are glass panels. I don't know if you can see in the back of the room here, there's a glass panel sitting against the wall. So they're glass panels, and then I have another piece that's all aluminum. And I'm actually working with Lift Art Studios in Roanoke to do both of those pieces. So that's great. One of the nice things about being an artist in residence here is I've gotten to know some really great fabricators. So that's been a great thing.
Terrific. Well, let's step back to that report. Any observations on Carri's work,
I saw a lot of similarities and kind of crossovers to the stuff we were talking about with Bill Fitzgibbons. And it seems to kind of align very clearly with the idea of the Wonder Pass and sort of creating this community pride and areas to celebrate within these different neighborhoods. So I thought that was pretty cool to kind of see that connection already, that mosaic already kind of happening with other projects.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it's really helpful to have a document like this, like you said, just to sort of also kind of take stock of what's already there, that you've already got so much potential for, already got connection going, and the potential for creating even more is nice.
Yeah. Jessica.
I have more of a question. I'm wondering what, in your experience, I noticed that some of your public art installations, it was either happening in parks, it was happening around greenery. And how does that get coordinated? Because I can see there being a lot of community buy-in. I know that a lot of people love art. They understand the value of public art. Some people, it's hard to get that buy-in, but I do feel like universally, people really understand the value of beautiful plants and flowers. And I think if you can connect that with the art, it could be pretty powerful. So just wondering, like, what does that look like coordinating around kind of the greenery?
I mean, I think it's really important, honestly, to think about the entire the entire effect you're trying to create. Like the piece on my building, we had a huge garden out front that really went with the mosaic. I mean, it was a whole thing. It wasn't just a mosaic, and the garden was part of that. Um, and I think you have to, the issue with dealing with green space is somebody's got to maintain it. Um, so that becomes, a question of, are you coordinating with the city when you're doing that? Or are you coordinating with a neighborhood community group that's going to help maintain that? Because that's, you know, most people are like, I want my art to be maintenance free, which nothing is maintenance free, but um, the greenery adds a maintenance component to it that a lot of people struggle with. I think it's worth it, and I think if you can really work with either a government body that's willing, Parks and Rec, and they always hate it when I say that, so I apologize. They're like, we already have enough to maintain, but or if you can find community members. I mean, there's a lot of amazing community gardens in this city. There's clearly a lot of people with green thumbs. If you've got gardening groups that are willing to sort of go in and help maintain that kind of stuff, I think that's really important. But I really like incorporating that with my work, and I think that the more control you have over that, the more profound it is the way your art's being looked at too.
And Tom in the room has his hand raised.
One of the things I noticed when you were going through the 5 neighborhood centers is that there is overwhelming amount of asphalt and concrete and virtually no shade whatsoever. And for a walkable community and traffic calming, I'm wondering if you ever work with trees and shade as a way to both beautify and make a neighborhood more accessible.
No, I think that landscaping is super important particularly in terms of the heat island effect that you get in urban areas. I think part of that is a little bit more prescriptive from the city side, because they're going to have a lot more standards in terms of what they allow and where they want those certain things. But I certainly think working with an artist can sort of help promote that more. But I think that would have to be done more in concert with what the arborist standards are in the city. Because I know with a lot of cities that doing the street trees and all is more prescriptive in terms of where they're putting them. You might be able to answer more to that, Douglas, than I can, but.
Well, yeah, it's a little bit separate. And of course, like when they do the CDBG investment, say like on Melrose, they planted trees and did the street furniture, and it looks terrific. And I think part of this is as we're looking at these ideas, it's like you said, it's to look at and see what's there and then what might not be there. And just looking at a picture with a real rendering on it makes me want to go back and look at it again to see how it lines up with it now.
And I'll tell you, I mean, in terms of my experience as an architect, if I switch my hat a little bit, when you're looking at an old strip center like this, if this gets renovated, there's probably new requirements in terms of adding greenery and trees and things like that to a lot. Whereas, as an artist, I can talk to you about maybe having some temporary things that are not going to be so rigid in terms of zoning and that type of thing that we might be able to do to sort of ameliorate some of that in a more temporary kind of way. Um, but yeah, I know you all have like facade grants and things like that, and if do you start to incorporate greenery as part of those things? I mean, could get a facade grant to help start to kind of reduce some of that asphalt consumption, in parking lots and things like that. I don't have the city knowledge to address that, but I know that kind of thing is a
If only we have a former city planner in the room, you could tell us. Tom, who asked that question, is a former city planner.
Go good.
So he knows.
Like, Tom, you should.
Did I do okay with my response?
Absolutely.
But you
go.
No, Carrie, I really do like that idea for a couple of these neighborhoods, especially West End and 11th Street, this idea of having this serial progressive art as a way of, I don't know, everything from drawing people in to wayfinding. Have you ever done any of that in a way that also provided shade?
I mean, I have not personally, but I mean, I think that would be an interesting way to incorporate it. The other great way to do that is with your public transport. I think we talked about that a little bit. And again, depending on, I'm not a city planner, and some cities working with the transit system is very easy, and sometimes it's not. It's very different circumstances depending on where you are, but is there a way that public transit can actually be more of a setting where there's a place to sit and rest, and it's not just about kind of waiting for the bus, but there's some shade there and there's some respite there, that become more oasis in the middle of that environment. I think would be potentially.
We met with some people in 11th Street the other day, Saturday, and I think that was actually one of the things mentioned was that they don't really have, I mean, in some places in the city, we do have bus shelters. And, but this might be a way to reimagine what a bus stop might look like.
And Carrie, there's a question. Could you define episodic art or tell us more what you mean by episodic art?
Well, things that happen in a series so that you get kind of a rhythm. One of the pieces that I am working on right now that's it's corridor art. So a lot of times when you have art along a corridor, corridors are about moving through spaces more than they are about, creating space. So, if you look at, there's some really kind of big corridors that move through some of these neighborhoods. And so is there a way that as I'm moving through that as a vehicle and also as a pedestrian, that things kind of happen in a rhythm that begin to make me understand that I am in a particular place, as opposed to some place where I'm gathering because I'm moving through it. But can I, like the band, was it West End, I think, that has a lot of the good identity banners that go along the street, something that begins to create that rhythm so that you understand that you're in a particular place, even if you're not stopped there. And I think that those are the, like, I love this image down here. I don't know, I'm on just my mouse, but anyway, that in the lower right hand corner there, the idea of something that's sort of bright and vibrant that sort of picks up on every block or something, so you kind of recognize
like our Wonder Pass.
Like the Wonder Pass.
Yes.
Well, but we talked a little bit about, I think with West End about LEAP and the community garden. It could also not only bring out that part of that neighborhood, but also could be a little bit wayfinding. From a market to a garden. that's too prescriptive, but I'm just saying, that's an episodic
Yeah.
example.
The bottom, that bottom right, the lighted panels, those are almost the same shape as the Vibe District in Virginia Beach has. They're three-dimensional, kind of like triangular, or they might have four sides. And they stand about this tall, and they're on almost every street corner, but artists paint them. So they're kind of like mural sculpture. But it defines the area as you walk through or drive through. You kind of know when you're in the district because those things are there.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a question that may not have an answer, but I'm curious about like the longevity of these kinds of projects. Like, there's like funding up front to like build the infrastructure, but I'm curious, I guess, about long-term maintenance and like where that comes from. Obviously, like the project is for like the neighborhood to feel like ownership over it, but like I'm curious where the funding for maintenance comes from. And I guess even Carrie, if you have some like anecdotal evidence of like your public art projects, how that kind of works.
Well, and Douglas, you can talk more to the financial parts, but usually the whoever is commissioning the piece is kind of responsible for the maintenance. And me as an artist, I give them a maintenance manual when I'm done, so they know what all the pieces are, what the parts are. Because of what I do, most of it's pretty maintenance free, and I don't have any control over whether they want to maintain it or not. Right. So I say, here's how you maintain it, and it's up to you whether you maintain it or not. Some people are really good at that, and some people are not really good at that. So, whenever I do a piece, I'm looking at something that's going to last at least 20 years. I mean, I'm not looking at doing something that's temporary unless it's intentionally temporary and it's going to be there for, a year or 3 or something like that. Then it's a kind of different animal. But usually there's a, like the piece in the park in Greensboro, the Parks and Rec are required to maintain that. Like they do the rest of the park. They have a huge Janice Eckelman piece. I don't know if you all know her work. She does these huge fish net sculptures that hang there. Pretty amazing. Yeah. They have to maintain that, right? So so usually the artist is like, this is how you maintain this thing, and you're responsible for doing that. So depends on who the commissioning agent is generally.
No, thanks, babe.
So is your piece in that same part where the net sculpture is? Okay,
yeah.
On the maintenance, so like for anything that's done on public property, the city has a requirement to maintain it. And the Arts Commission, we were just talking about budget a little bit ago. Every year in the budget that we give council, we keep $50,000 aside as a line item for maintenance. And that makes sure that we have that there to maintain. We might have a big, storm could come and do that much damage to one of like a larger piece. Say the one with these hands over in front of Berglund Center. We have a project that we're going to have to do pretty soon. The mosaics in front of the market building. That whole substrate's got to be pulled up, and that might eat that whole that whole amount. I don't know how expensive that is, but then Cheryl Foster is the artist, and we don't like to do anything without talking to the artist and getting guidance from the artist on it. But I can't get up with her, and she's older now, so we might have to. And I doubt she would have an estate that you would work with. Some of the larger artists have an estate that way. But Tom, are you going to help us with that project? Are you raising your hand?
No, I have a question.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Yeah.
I'm happy to chime in on that if you need some help. I've
We
had to do
might be.
some rework of we had a piece out in front of the Waterworks building in Charlotte that was done by an artist in Phoenix, and the substrate was metal, which is never a good substrate for tile. And we basically had to dismantle the whole piece and rework it into something different. We saved her tile because her tile was amazing.
Yeah, with these and we everybody loves this project, and we want to keep it, and so we might be reaching out and getting some expert guidance from you. That's what we would do. Typically, like even when that was it put in place, there was a local tile company that worked alongside the artist. And
that's cool.
Yeah,
they probably had tons of scraps and stuff.
Yeah, they had a really good relationship. So what we would do would be find local artists, maybe a local tile company, whatever expertise we need. But that's a lot of energy and time. That's a whole nother project to organize. Fortunately, we've got a great leader there at the market building. So he's waiting to hear from me. So I need to get on that maybe tomorrow.
What were you gonna say before we volunteered you?
I'm afraid to say anything now. Carrie, Ben has mentioned a couple of times wayfinding.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if you have any experience with using horizontal art as a medium for wayfinding to get people to these business centers.
I do have a little bit. I didn't, usually I use wayfinding as kind of a category, like what we're talking about here, which we certainly could do a layer of that as well. It wasn't really introduced a lot in the original document, so I kind of didn't go there because sometimes wayfinding is a thing all of its own. But yeah, I actually love art as wayfinding. I think it's it's kind of a really wonderful way to incorporate, kind of the "you are here" thing with sort of your sense of place too.
We're kind of involved in that a little bit up in Mill Mountain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember talking about that a little bit up there.
And will be cool in all of our neighborhoods.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned, and you don't have to have additional thoughts on this, but you did make the reference of kind of connecting the different districts because they're all doing art projects. Do you have any more to say about that? I think that's an interesting thought, or something that we can keep in mind.
Yeah, I have to tell you, as an artist, I'm a very iterative artist, so I kind of throw a bunch of shit on the table and see what bubbles up to the top, and then I realize what I'm trying to do. And in some ways, I kind of see that here, that things start happening in each of these neighborhoods, and maybe then you start to see what those connections are.
Yeah.
And then once those kind of come up, then maybe you can enhance them. So, maybe that wayfinding component becomes the thing that connects them once you kind of have an idea what each neighborhood really is kind of identifying itself at. And that's where that wayfinding element might come and be more of a blanket that connects them all. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, one of my favorite. I lived in Charlotte for way too long, and so I'm sorry I keep using it as an example, but Charlotte tried a lot to identify itself in certain ways. It was going to be the city of fountains. It was going to be the city of this or whatever. And it historically has 4 wards, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4 wards in downtown. And then they started doing wayfinding that talked about like the Northeast corridor. They completely changed the way that you talked about the areas of the city. And so there were like 2 or 3 different wayfinding devices overlaying. And so it just got so confusing that like, pick one, so I think the idea of really kind of developing a language in each neighborhood and then finding a way that a wayfinding device can connect those things would makes more sense to me than to sort of come up with the wayfinding and then find out that that doesn't really work or,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that to kind of shift that ongoing narrative of the four quadrants of the city.
Any other questions or comments? We're right at an hour. Jessica.
I'm sorry. I was just curious, what's the first step in implementing like anything, like any one project? Just curious, what's the first step on getting it accomplished?
I'll leave that to you, Douglas.
Okay. Wow. Is this so, Jessica? Should I be like thinking about this from the neighborhood perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me. Ben Bazak is here, and he's on
Take
our.
it away, Ben.
And so's Mandy, and they're on our placemaking committee. And that is our, our citizen committee that is thinking about how to use art to strengthen places and strengthen the neighborhoods. And that's part of the Roanoke Arts Commission. And I have a little card here. I'm gonna pull a website up in a second, but we're in the middle of our, the last time we did a plan, it was led by Tom Carr, and that was in 2011. And we're doing another arts and cultural plan, and it's 2026. And we fully anticipate this report being part of that plan. And that in itself saying, okay, we want to use art to invest in strengthen these neighborhood districts. And when we have it in a plan, it's a mandate, right? So then we are built already with the placemaking committee I was at a meeting somewhere the other day and they said, well, people are always bringing, it was a city meeting. They said, well, people are always bringing you ideas. And I said, yeah, they are. It's hard. It's hard in a way because we don't have endless amount of money. But somebody brings an idea, immediately goes into the notes of Ben's committee, and so that we don't lose them. And so if somebody has an idea and says, hey, I think we should put a sculpture on the corner of this street and this street, the first thing we do would say, okay, now what role does it play? So we'll go back to this, and we actually do in our past arts and cultural plan, we have some sites for some gateway art that are identified. We have neighborhoods that are identified that say we should be doing neighborhood art. This is going to refine that to a degree. So we go back and say, well, how does that fit into our existing plans and our existing resources? If we don't have the resources already or the plan kind of art, sometimes we're thinking right in line with the neighborhood or the person. Other times we need to say, okay, well, we're going to think about this as we go through our next budgeting process. Right now, if you have a big idea, it is a perfect time to put it into our arts and cultural planning process. And that process, there's a survey, and I'm gonna get you the link in just a second. I'll put it in the chat. That survey, you can either answer the full survey, you can answer the quick survey, or you can just tell us an idea. One thing that Tom modeled the way for us with the last time with that plan was that every idea that was submitted was put into the appendix on the back so that we still have all those ideas. So I'm gonna pull this, I'm gonna share my screen with you.
Here, I'll stop mine. Here you go.
And I'm gonna share this, and then so if you go to roanokearts.org/plan, this is what the survey screen looks like. And you can scroll down, it says you can do the full survey, you can do the quick survey, or you can just share an idea. And then you can also give us your name if you're not already on our newsletter. I think everybody here is on the newsletter list by now. So if you want to share an idea, it's very, look at that. Look at that.
Blank canvas.
You can't get much.
Not prescriptive.
Yeah. We're not leading you anyway. Share an idea about how we should have more money in the city budget. Yeah. Yeah. We didn't lead you in any way. And then if we go back, there's the full survey. But we do want, we're a citizen commission, and we both want to advance the mandate that the city has through the comprehensive plan, and then this additional detail through the arts and cultural plan. So we want to advance those things. But if there's a project that feels right, part of what we can do is say, oh, well, someone else was thinking about a similar project, or we have a manufacturer in town. Why don't we talk about it? Or why don't we get together at Arts Connect Tuesday and see if anybody else is interested in this? So,
And also,
yeah,
build partnerships sometimes, private partnerships that can possibly get things done.
yeah. And in fact, Carrie showed on her, showed on the Gainsborough one, showed the end of Gilmer. Now, Tom's working on a plan right now. Tom, what are you working on, Gilmer?
It's a traffic calming and artistic traffic calming project using horizontal art to slow cars speeding down the residential street.
Yeah, so they'll extend some of they'll kind of bulb out some of those curbs with some paint and some of those bollards like happened on Ferdinand last year. And then on Carrie's report, she had a G down there at 5th and Gilmer. And I was on my bicycle the other day after meeting with Jordan Bell and some folks. And because I looked on the map, I said, wow, what if we had a sculpture there that tied into it? But it's private property. And then one has like a Shentel access thing. But I was looking, I was like, wow, what if we were able to figure out how to do both the painted part and then have a sculpture that kind of introduced you to Gainsborough as you're coming in from that. That's a pretty busy little four-way stop intersection. But an idea like that, I think the Arts Commission isn't the only source for it, of course, because I'm gonna give you a plug for the RNA. Or do you want to give the plug?
I could give a plug. Yeah. I mean,
Why don't you give the plug?
Yeah, so the Roanoke Neighborhood Advocates, they have grant funds, throughout the year. They have $42,000. There is our neighborhood grants, which tends to be a little larger, or there's our spark plug grants that are $1,000 or less. And any sort of like neighborhood improvement projects, most certainly, and even things like murals could fall under that, but it's best if they are submitted by neighborhood groups. And it's also good if they involve the community, the surrounding neighborhood, so that there's community participation. But you could have matching funds. So I would suppose that if a neighborhood group was coordinating with maybe an artist or another organization, and they were just gonna we want funds for this mural, but yet that's just one piece of it, that would be encouraged as well. It's good to show partnerships in your grant applications there.
In fact, looking back, it's George's 15th birthday. George is the Trojan dog of the Granite Village, and that was done as a temporary piece. But when it was made permanent, that was a grant through RNA to the neighborhood, and then the Arts Commission contributed and kind of matched it. But the neighborhood energy was what was so important about it. They're the ones who said, "This dog is pretty cool. We need to have it." So that's what we hope that this report that Carrie has done, that it can be sitting on a table somewhere and a resident look through it and go, well, wait a minute, we can do this here, and let's figure it out. Yeah. So Carrie, thank you for the report, and thank you for sharing it with us tonight.
It was a lot of fun. I hope that there's an opportunity to continue the conversation, because I think it could be really wonderful.
Yeah, and another nice thing is I'm really happy that we got to be introduced to this residency with Carrie's work. I can imagine working with Carrie on some projects in the future, and she's just right up the road in Floyd. So yeah. All right. Does anybody else have anything
How
Sorry,
long
Joanne.
is the planning survey open? I'm sorry if you already said it.
Oh, you know what? I didn't say it. I probably don't, I might not even know.
Oh, no, worry. Does it say?
We wanna get,
It probably says.
it,
I feel like I saw it posted or
Okay.
something, but.
it might not say.
I don't, yeah,
I'm not sure that we have set, we
I
wanna
don't
get,
remember.
we wanna get 1,500 surveys, and I am not sure that we've actually set
Okay.
a timeline, but
And
you're
that's
right.
what
it was
those
good.
cards are for, right?
That's what these cards are for.
Yeah.
So if you're in the room and you wanna take some cards and, hand them to your friends or
I'll
pass
put
them.
it in the studio tomorrow.
Oh, thank you.
That would be great.
Yeah, we're just starting to push this out, so we will come up with a deadline.
Okay.
That'll be the next step.
I just don't wanna miss it.
All right. Okay, anything else? Well, thank you all for being here tonight. It was good hanging out with you.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks,
Thanks you all so much. Enjoyed it.
You.
Thanks, guys.
Right.
You want anything about some already?
No, I don't.